Well, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to this webinar hosted by Matillion, Accelerating Marketing Insights with Google Cloud and Matillion. My name is Christian Everard. I'll be your host today. Joining us on the speaker panel today, we have John Gidrose, Cloud Strategy Lead at Google. We have Jonathan Romero, Head of Analytics at UK customer, the 7 Stars, and Laura Mallins, Solutions Architect at Matillion. So the way the session is going to work today is that Google are going to introduce the subject area to us. Following this, we're going to have Jonathan from the 7 Stars, who's going to talk about the project success they've had using Google BigQuery, and using Matillion. And finally, we're going to show you how to get started on your project using Matillion ETL with a live demo. This is so that you can see how accessible the technology stack is and how easy it is to get started. If you haven't heard of Matillion before, we market and we sell a data integration product. It's built specifically for Google BigQuery and uses all of the performance provided by Google BigQuery in quite a unique way. We'll take you through that towards the end of this webinar. We'll also have some time at the end to cover your questions. And so if you do have any questions, you can post these into the chat panel and we'll circle back round to those. And towards the end, we'll open up for more general Q&A. So without further ado, and assuming you are ready, over to you, John, from Google.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction, and I really want to thank our partner Matillion right up front for hosting this, putting it together, and our mutual customer, the 7 Stars, for sharing their story with everyone, and thank everyone on the line for taking time out of their day to join us. Again, my name is John Gidrose. I am a cloud strategy lead with Google Cloud, and titles don't mean a whole lot here, but what I do get to do every day is spend time talking to marketers. And the way that my group sort of came to be, we had a number of hypotheses that have been churning inside Google, but one of the better stories about how we came together is one of our executives was having coffee with another executive, a senior vice president of marketing from a large bank, and just asked a simple question of how many of your customer data sets are you able to incorporate into your advertising tools, and the response back was, none, I can't link the data sets. And unfortunately, this is typical of many companies today, and I suspect many of you have seen this in some form or fashion, and is probably why you've come to attend this call today. So we got together inside Google Cloud and said, how are we going to help solve these challenges, and what can we do to focus on marketers getting value from cloud? And it's an exciting time for marketers. There's a lot of folks working hard to enable customer centricity and thinking about how to get smarter with using data. I think these 3 thoughts are what we spend a lot of time helping folks with. It's just to illustrate the takeaways that I think you can derive from successfully integrating data on the marketing front. Ask yourself, what are the top 3 data silos that could be connected or combined to get a better view of your customer journey? What new customer insights could we unlock by combining our customer data? And how can we connect audience insights to media activation to drive better performance? And they seem like simple concepts, but it actually gets quite complicated pretty quickly. And so folks come to our team and say, so how do we approach this? And oftentimes we look at the customer journey and see that there's really 900 touch points is one of the common numbers that gets thrown around. And what that means is you have to think beyond channels. You have to think about digital touch points. What's the journey for the customers? And then if you look at the data sets around that, you come to the conclusion that, wow, there's a whole lot of data that you need to bring together. So we look at this and say, yeah, there's a pretty simple formula for getting insights from digital marketing. There's data times connections equals insights. And when you look at that in the reality of today, data is surging. The tsunami of data is well known, it's well discussed. Everyone's collecting more data than ever. And we all know that data is only as good as how you use it, and that's where the connections come in. And I think that connections are the true source of power in today's world. And the better your connections are, the better you can generate insights, which then create real-life business outcomes. So we're very focused on that and finding the right partners. And so we really value Matillion and being able to bring this ecosystem together for you as end customers. And then I just want to point out the relationship between these really is a multiplier. And when you make better connections, you get much more powerful insights. And there are some great tools out there, but we can't mistake great tools for solving data silos. Rarely are connections solved for you, especially for marketers who aren't necessarily leading the full IT stack. On average, we're hearing that most companies are using 30 separate tools. I think that's actually a pretty conservative number. And it doesn't really matter how many tools you're using. Everyone is struggling to get a holistic view of their customer. In addition, customer data and other parts of the business have value that if you could combine those with marketing data sets, you could really get to some interesting insights. So they're using amazing marketing platforms and have incredible customer data available across the business, but you just have a lot of data silos. And so there's this concept of a customer data platform, and I think a lot of folks in the marketing space are talking about this, but if you want to unlock the power of your data, you need a platform that combines data sets and isn't just another set of tools. So we think cloud is a no-brainer for being able to solve for this, and we're focused, my team specifically, on applying Google's marketing analytics capabilities, especially when you combine that with our robust partner ecosystem like Matillion. And when you bring that together, you can reveal the insights and make better decisions faster. Google Cloud Platform was actually built from the ground up to support marketing analytics use cases. We built our own infrastructure out over the last 18 years because nothing in the marketplace met Google's standards for organizing the world's information and making it universally accessible, which is our mission statement, and useful in real time. And when you set out to do that, it turns out you actually learn a lot about data. So we've got some ideas on how to connect data sets for marketing analytics use cases, and I'll share with you something that we've put together to help marketers get started in a second. I also want to point out that our infrastructure is highly secure. Since our inception, consumers have actually trusted Google with asking questions they might not have been very comfortable asking other people out loud, and maintaining privacy and security of sensitive data is of the utmost importance to us, and we've done that. One of the metrics that I'll point out is that we've hired and retained over 500 engineers focused on security of Google Cloud alone. So folks want to focus on results and not technology. We take that into consideration as we architect cloud tools and solutions. And with Google, you have the choice to set up a fully managed zero ops architecture, which is unique among cloud providers. For lean marketing teams without dedicated IT support, this accelerates your time to insight, and your IT teams have reduced overhead of managing infrastructure and provisioning servers to support your view and vision. So at the end of the day, it's all about getting insights faster, and connectors to Google data sources are something that we provide right away to help reduce setup time to run your first queries across those data sets. And once you do, we have some BI tools that are able to optimize and deliver answers back to your analysts in minutes or seconds, not hours. That's one question I'd sort of pose to you and your internal teams is, what's the longest query you run? If it's days or even hours, you're probably not optimized for today's query world. So what does this really look like? We went out and interviewed a bunch of customers about a year and a half ago and asked them what they were doing today. These are marketers, and what would you like to do? And some were building out ETL tools, some were using ETL tools, most weren't, and many said, hey, you're Google, you've got a cloud, and you've got a lot of Google data sets that can be difficult to connect to. So we actually built something called the BigQuery Data Transfer Service, which we launched in beta at our next conference in March 2017, and it's being used now by over 300 companies. The BigQuery Data Transfer Service automatically brings all your data from YouTube, DoubleClick, AdWords, so Google data sets into BigQuery, which we'll talk about a bit more on this call. And we also have native connectors for Google Analytics 360, Firebase. So the BigQuery data transfer service automates data movement into BigQuery on a scheduled, managed basis multiple times per day. And companies are saying they like using it for advertising ad tech solutions to get started with analytics very quickly. And then they can bring in other data sources, which is illustrated here with our partner Matillion, so that your analytics team can lay the foundation for a customer data platform without even writing a single line of code. So you can upload and store any data in any format onto Google Cloud Storage. You've got this connection service I mentioned to you to Google data sets. We've got these partners that we're talking about today. And what folks are starting to do is they're saying, well, I can really create my enterprise data warehouse on Google BigQuery and then have the team run SQL queries across terabytes of data in seconds or minutes, real time in meetings. So that's where our team got together and said, well, look, we've got 6 fundamental tools inside Google Cloud that we could package up in a flat rate bundle and call it a marketing data analytics starter pack. And many customers are getting started. Marketers are getting started with this. And that's focused on what you see here as the foundation, the stages of data journey for marketing data sets especially. So to unlock the power of that data, you got to first take the steps to collect the data, transform it, make the data consistent and useful, and then analyze it at a greater speed and scale. So we see these 5 distinct steps. I don't necessarily think this is gospel. It's just the way that we've sort of structured our thinking. And the Marketing Analytics Starter Pack is designed to help companies get started with the first 3 steps. And then you can think of the pack as building a foundation layer for your house. In order to do more sophisticated things like machine learning, you've got to have that foundation in place. And we hear from clients who are using these elements that they're able to solve problems they've previously taken them months or years, and their analyst teams are freed up to take other tasks on. But this is really just the beginning. People don't really care that much about descriptive analytics. There's a lot of talk about predictive analytics. I think predictive analytics have become table stakes, and where we're really headed is into an era of prescriptive insights and prescriptive analytics, the era of assistance. So our, Google Cloud's platform is architecturally different from any software as a service solution because it's able to integrate a large number of data sources at massive scale to solve for open-ended number of customer data and marketing challenges. And this open architecture not only makes integrating data sources from first-party information or commercial data sets at scale possible, it also provides the foundation for activating insights through connectors and APIs with a broad ecosystem of tools that drive the customer experience. And so the result is that you end up with a platform designed to help companies thrive in the era of assistance, in which customers expect companies will interact with, that they provide information that informs and delights them and anticipates their needs before they're even expressed. So with that, I'll turn it over to our main event, which is our customer, the 7 stars. Jonathan, take it away.
Okay, thanks, John. Thanks very much. Really interesting stuff there. And a lot of what you said is going to lead directly into what I'm going to speak about as well, so thanks for that. So just a brief intro to the 7 stars. We are the UK's most successful and largest independent media agency. We are based in London, UK, and we're a full-service agency, so we do everything from TV to radio to programmatic to paid search, social, analytics, attribution, and everything in between. We've been around for several years. We're still growing very quickly, recently picking up accounts for Capital One and Deliveroo, as well as winning Campaign's Media Agency of the Year this year. So it's been very busy, and of course, the data plays a huge part of everything we do, and we find ourselves like most other companies, swimming in a sea of data, and very much in danger of drowning in that data if we are not careful and we're not managing that correctly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what led us to Matillion. So a little bit about that journey that took us there, and then I'll talk a little bit about how we use it currently. So apologies, I don't have any slides to keep you focused, so just please do try and pay attention. So when I started with the 7 stars, one of the core responsibilities I picked up was to improve the client reporting, and that's in terms of quality of the outputs and the methodology of producing those reports. And now reporting isn't potentially the most sexiest of topics here, but it's one of the key things for everyone these days is understanding your data, visualizing that data, so you can get those insights out. So I will focus a little bit on reporting today. We spend thousands of hours a year pulling CSV files out of various interfaces into Excel, adding VLOOKUPs, pivot tables, and so forth. Is your kind of traditional way of getting that data out and looking at it and understanding it, and then communicating that to the clients. But we're growing so quickly, adding major clients every day, and we have to get in front of this issue. So how do we improve the reporting situation at the 7 stars? So my first step really was to look at what data we had and where it was. And the simple answer to that was that it was really all over the place. And anyone in digital marketing will kind of relate to that. You've got data in loads of different sources, in various different schemas, and none of it really works together too well. So we looked at a lot of various reporting options. There are various providers in the marketplace that offer a kind of a one-stop shop for marketing data. And we looked at those, and none of it really gave us the flexibility that we wanted. Each client is very different. They all have different data sets that require different levels of transformation. Some are just very picky and they want things a certain way. Others don't care, and so forth. So dealing with clients, I think you need to be very flexible. So we needed something that wasn't going to restrict us in any way. And it was at the same time that we were starting to use the double-click data transfer, which John just mentioned previously. So double-click data transfer data, which is the raw hit level data from double-click campaign manager and bid manager and various other sources. And at the same time, we were also seeing people moving to GA360, and more clients that we were signing already had GA360. So more and more, we were seeing BigQuery come into the conversation, and it was really this BigQuery element that all these platforms had in common. And so we started to think, yeah, maybe BigQuery is really the solution to our problem. We had other data sources as well. Your standard Google Analytics, AdWords, Facebook, various ad platforms like Criteo, and affiliate networks. And in which fact, Matillion actually does have Facebook and AdWords connector built in, so that is very useful as well. But there are other services out there which would allow us to connect to things like Facebook, things like Criteo and affiliate networks, and bring that data directly into BigQuery. So really what we were seeing is that BigQuery was becoming something that we could use. We could pull all our data in from predominantly most of the sources that we were using. We could get, and we could get those direct connections directly into BigQuery. So this was shaping up to be a pretty good solution for us, I think. We were getting all our data into one place. It was scalable, so we could really, it's unlimited. It was manageable, very cost effective, super fast, and best of all, really, we didn't have to manage or maintain any infrastructure. But of course, then there's always the but, and the but here was that, what you then do with all that data. So now we're talking billions of rows of data in BigQuery. And so going back to the start of this story, reporting was the key issue. And we had come so far, we now have all our data into one place, and we could then sit Tableau or Data Studio on top of BigQuery, and they work very nicely together. But as I said, we're dealing with billions of rows of data. And if you're familiar with Tableau Data Studio, it's going to be difficult to sit them on top of 7 billion rows of data and have them perform well. So we really were faced again with then another issue. How do we manage this data? What can we do to speed things up and get this data in a good shape for us? BigQuery is really great for writing your queries and getting an immediate result. But what we needed was kind of pre-aggregated data sets with all the transformations already done on them, so we could then very just nicely sit Tableau or Data Studio on top of it and have it perform quickly. So enter Matillion at this point, and we found Matillion quite by accident, actually, at one of the GCP summits in London last year. And it was a light bulb moment for us, really. And in fact, I've worked a long time in this career, and I don't think I've ever had a moment where a software solution came along and literally did exactly what I needed it to do, exactly when I needed it. So it was really a great moment, actually. And we had a 5-minute demo there with Matillion at the summit, and it was clear that this was the answer to some of our issues. And so we went forward with Matillion, and it was very simple to set up. This took about 5 minutes. As it works within the GCP platform, everything is kind of there and in place. Super quick and easy to get running. The interface is easy to learn, makes sense, and works well. I took maybe a day to get used to it, and then maybe a week to feel extremely comfortable with it. And when we're talking about our marketing data, we're talking about doing a lot of things like joins, joining up with match tables and VLOOKUP equivalent kind of things, string calculations, case statements, date calculations is a really big one for us. We're always wrangling with different date formats. Matillion really handles those quite easily, and various other things. Now, so we take these massive data sets that we had in BigQuery, so billions of rows, and we go from having a few billion rows down to 20 or 30,000 rows in a nicely aggregated table that we can then use in Tableau Data Studio. And of course, in addition to that, the most important thing, or one of the key things for us, was actually the scheduling function that Matillion gives us to run queries whenever we want them to automatically. This is, of course, important for your clients who demand up-to-date data all the time. For example, we have a client on GA360 using the BigQuery export, which is now offering 10-minute updates. So you can essentially tap into that and have Matillion refresh every 10 minutes and update your dashboard every 10 minutes. So essentially live data of great for when you're running campaigns and you want to see immediate results. So as I said, I think I built my first transformation job within a day. Within a week, I was comfortable using Matillion. First kind of proof of concept we did with Matillion was to build out a report for Nintendo, one of our clients. We'd been servicing previously with an Excel report. It was a very large Excel report. It was taking about 4 people a few hours to produce that every week, which everyone can probably relate to. And inherently, there are issues with that most weeks. So using BigQuery, using Matillion, we pulled data from all the different sources that we needed. It was about 8 or 9 different sources, including DoubleClick, Facebook, AdWords, Criteo, affiliate networks and things like that. Also using Google Sheets. Matillion has a very handy Google Sheets component, which is great for situations where you have no API connector available or no way of getting that data in automatically. You can still pull in that data into your automated process within Matillion. If you can update that Google Sheet, that'll get pulled in. So that's super handy for things like cost data where you can't get that in from some platforms, or if you're frequently changing campaign names or channel groupings, you can use that as a lookup table, which is super handy. And so that first process, that first proof of concept report, took us about 20 hours to put together. And that was our first go without ever having done it before. And currently now we're down to about 5 hours for any new kind of project, and that includes any kind of QA process and testing and things like that to get it all perfect. And the beauty really is of Matillion is that if you build out a transformation flow and you have consistent data sets, then once you've built that transformation in Matillion, it becomes a template almost that you can then just change a few things here and there. Maybe it's a filter, maybe it's a client ID or something like that. And then, you set that running again, and you've got your new report for your next client. So we're saving hundreds, if not thousands of hours of work hours per year, I would say. So taking all the manual Excel reporting out of the equation, replacing it with automated BigQuery, GCP, Matillion jobs, and then on top of that, improving the outputs to the clients using Data Studio or Tableau. And so you freed up a lot of time for your campaign analysts and your analysts to really spend that time instead of working with pivot tables and VLOOKUPs. They are now writing commentary and pulling out insights from the reports. And I think to finish, what I'd like to say, I think, is the transparency, the flexibility of GCP and BigQuery. And when you sit Matillion combined in there, it's a very effective solution for data analysts or for managers to not only transform and create these report-ready data sets, but also for your kind of day-to-day analysis requirements. I mean, I now use things like, Tableau and Matillion in conjunction with together to do my daily any kind of ad hoc analysis that comes up, and is extremely powerful. So really great experience. No technical really background required to use Matillion. Like I said, it's if you struggle with SQL or you're not super strong with SQL, you can't quite write those joins and get that syntax quite correct in the interface. Matillion is going to come in and save you a lot of time. So for me, it's been a bit of a revelation in that way. So that's super great. So thanks to Matillion and Google. Thanks for everyone for listening. And I think it's Laura now who's going to give a bit of a demo.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Jonathan, and thank you for the insights into Seven Stars organization and for how you work with data. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So just moving forward, we'd like to share with you a demonstration of how Matillion works. Before we get there, I'd just like to take you through a few basics. I almost feel like I don't need to do it because Jonathan's given us such a great introduction to how Matillion works already. However, there are a couple of things to bear in mind. So Matillion ETL is so cool because we help people work with their data, get their data organized to work in an organized fashion in Google BigQuery. However, as Matillion ETL is so called, we actually follow a totally different design principle called ELT. What this means is Matillion is helping you to get your data first into Google BigQuery, and we are helping you to transform and organize your data within Google BigQuery. So this is a very big design differentiator for us. It helps customers to be more speed efficient and help you to work in your data way quicker than following a traditional ETL approach. The only other thing to say is that this tool is specifically built for Google BigQuery. So if you've chosen Google BigQuery to be your data warehouse, all of the things which you know and love about Google BigQuery are exposed in this product. There is no compromise. All you need is a simple web browser to access and action your job designs within Google BigQuery. The ELT approach actually gives us a number of other upsides. Just a couple of things to mention on this slide. Primarily the fact that you can actually access Matillion from a web browser. So there's no heavy, clunky client-side installs necessary. You only need a web browser to access Matillion. Because it's exclusively built for the cloud, for the Google GCP platform, you will launch the product from within Google and can be up and running in just a couple of minutes. The final bullet on here, retail-like purchasing, really refers to the way that we sell the product. It's charged by the hour to the nearest hour, and so it's very cheap to get running, up and running with Matillion. With that, I'm going to hand over now to Laura Mallins. Laura's going to take us through a very quick build of a job within Matillion to really highlight how you can work with data and start to see value in working with the product. Over to you, Laura.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Christian. So you should now be able to see my screen, and I'm sharing my web browser, which is connecting to a Matillion instance that I launched earlier today. This is the main user interface that you see within Matillion and that you interact with. So in the Explorer pane, we've got, we can see all the jobs that we've got in Matillion. And I should probably tell you that there are two types of jobs that you can build within Matillion. You can build, excuse me, an orchestration job to bring external data into BigQuery. And the orchestration job is doing the extract and load side of the slides that Christian talked you through. We've also got a transformation job, which can be used to transform the data as you required. And today we'll look at both of these types of jobs very briefly. And we'll look at them to merge together some open source marketing data that I've got held in both Salesforce and some flat files which are stored in Google Cloud Storage buckets. So the first job I've got open is an orchestration job here. And here we can see I've got a list of components available for me to use within this job. And I've opened up the load and unload components just so we can see an example of the components that we've got available to us. So as Jonathan was saying, we've got many different components to connect into many external data sources, and we can just simply drag the components on the screen to pull the data in from those sources. So we can see here on my screen, I've already pulled in and configured a Salesforce query component. So these components are very simple to configure. I've simply given Matillion authentication access to access my Salesforce data. I've selected the contact data source from my Salesforce object to pull through a new contact details. And I've chosen the fields from that contact object that I want to create my new table from in BigQuery. I've also added a data source filter in here so that I'm only pulling through contacts that have been modified in the last 6 months. Then finally, I've given the name of a target table in my BigQuery database called Salesforce Contacts, and Matillion will create this table when I run this component, and we'll connect into Salesforce and we'll copy those Salesforce contacts that match my data selection and my filter, and we'll load them into this new table in BigQuery. So as well as bringing through some Salesforce contacts in here, I also want to bring through their associated accounts. So I can do this by simply right-clicking and copying this component and then pasting it onto the screen here. So we can say after we've successfully loaded in my contacts, now I can configure this to load through my accounts. So in the data source, I want to change the drop-down to select my accounts. And here you can see Matillion is listing all of the Salesforce objects that I've got access to in my Salesforce account, even the custom objects if I've got any as well. So let me select that account in there. And now let me jump into the data selection and say I want to bring through from my account object the ID of the account and also the name of the account. And this is so I can see the associated name with my contact. I can see the company name with my contact. Let me remove that data source filter so we just bring through all the accounts we've got. And finally, let's change the target table name so that the accounts are written to a table called Salesforce accounts. And then to supplement this Salesforce data, I've got some additional marketing data which is held in a flat file in a cloud storage bucket. And because at Matillion we were finding that many of our customers have got flat files that they've got in cloud storage buckets that they want to load into BigQuery, we've got a component here called the Cloud Storage Load component, which can help us load that flat file. And we've also built a little tool called the Cloud Storage Load Generator, which can help us pre-configure those components. So I simply need to select this tool, drag it onto the screen, and up pops this load generator. So within the load generator, the first thing I need to do is point to a file in my cloud storage bucket. So here we can see, because Matillion is so closely coupled with the GCP platform, we are listing all of our buckets that we've got access to. Then I can double click in one of these buckets. And then here we can see I've got a file in this bucket called marketing data. So I can simply select this file, tell the load generator to get a sample of this file, and then Matillion will connect into the bucket and will sample the file. And we can see this sample across the top here. So we can see we've got some information on some campaigns that we've run and who we've emailed from that campaign. And based on this sample, Matillion has identified the file type, so it knows it's a CSV file. It also has identified that because the top row of data has different metadata from the rest of the file, that row is the header, and we shouldn't load that header in. And based on that header information, it has also given us the metadata for the table that this should be written into. So I can change any of these names if I want, or I can change the data types. But as it happens, I'm happy with this, so I can click OK. And here we can see Matillion has created us the components to load this file into BigQuery. So I can connect this up to the start component and say I want to run this in parallel with my Salesforce load. Matillion has created me a create replace table component so that I don't have to manually input all of this metadata myself. I'll change the create and replace to replace the table in case it already exists. And then I can click into the cloud storage load and we can see that Matillion has configured the cloud storage load component to connect into the file that I selected. It's configured the file format for me and it will load that into the marketing data table once it has been created. So it's very easy to run an orchestration job in Matillion. I just need to simply right click and select run job. So now we can monitor this job running in the task pane down the right-hand side here. And we can see that as this job is running, Matillion is connecting into Salesforce and it's streaming data directly up from Salesforce into a cloud storage bucket, and then it's copying the contents of that down into BigQuery. Also in parallel, it's creating me my blank table in my BigQuery database, and it's loading the contents of the file into that table. And we can see it took 15 seconds for me to load all of that data into BigQuery. Excuse me. So BigQuery has now become the centralized place to store my data. So now I've got this data available in BigQuery, I can transform it using a Matillion transformation job. So I can just jump across to a job that I've got partially created here. And the first thing you'll notice in a transformation job is the components you've got available to you here differ from the components that you've got available in an orchestration job. So because a transformation job's all about reading data in from BigQuery, transforming it and then writing it out back out into BigQuery, we've got a series of components that matches that. And in this transformation job, I want to merge together the two different data sets. And I want to do this to see how successful my campaigns are. So in this scenario, we're assuming that my campaigns from my flat file. They are successful if someone has responded to their campaign and then they've been added into my Salesforce account. So we can see I've got a partially built transformation job here. And all I've done is I've brought the contents of my Salesforce contacts table in and my Salesforce accounts in. And I've just done a simple join to join them together on the account IDs so that I can see my contacts with the associated company name. I'm then going to bring in a new table input component to bring across my marketing data. So it's very simple to add the components. I simply drag it onto the screen and drop it where I require. I can now click into the component to change the properties on that. So the first thing I want to do is select my table. So here we can see that Matillion is listing all of the tables I've got on my BigQuery database. So I'll select that marketing data table and hit OK. And now I'm prompted to select which columns from that table I want to bring into this job. So let me bring to all columns and hit OK. So hopefully this is coming across on your screen okay, but that marketing data component changed color. It changed from red through to amber through to green. And the reason it changed color is because every time I make a change to any component in Matillion, Matillion will try and validate that that change is good to run. So because this component is now green, it means it's good to run against my BigQuery database. So I can click on the sample tab and I can get a row count of that data, and I can also get a sample of the data here. So Matillion was quick to tell me that I have just over 10,000 records of data in this table. And here you can see some of the details of some of my campaigns. So we've got a campaign name, we've got an associated industry, and we've got the last name of the recipient of my email campaign. So now I want to join this into my Salesforce data. And to do this, I will add in another join component. I want to tell Matillion that I want the data to flow from my first join into the second join, and also from my marketing data into that join as well. And now I'm ready to configure the properties of this join. So let's say my main table is the marketing data. We can alias this for campaign. And then let's just give one simple join into my Salesforce data. And let me make this a left join so that we can retain all of our campaign information. Now I'm ready to give my join expression. So this edit properties box that you see on your screen, if you start working with Matillion, you'll become really familiar with. And what it does is it helps me generate the SQL that I want at this particular point of the job. And Jonathan referenced this earlier, that you don't have to be particularly strong with the SQL to use Matillion. If you are good with SQL, you can write it in freehand across the top here. If you're not so good with SQL, Matillion will help you generate it. And it does this with the list of fields below, and also it lists all of the BigQuery SQL functions that you can use at this point as well. So in this join, I just want to do a really simple join. I want to join the tables on the email address and also on my company names. So now that join's completed, I can click OK. I can give all columns as an output from this. And now we can see my join has turned green. So now let's use a calculator component to add a calculated column to tell me if a campaign was successful. So I can simply drag the calculator onto the screen, feed the data as an output from the join into my calculator, and then in the calculations, I can add in a new custom column. So let's call that campaign successful. And in here, I can say, I will determine a campaign is successful when the recipient of the campaign has responded and then been added into Salesforce. So let's check to see if that Salesforce ID is null. If it is, the campaign's not successful. Otherwise, let's say it is. End it there. Hit OK on that. And here we can see the calculators turned green, so that calculated column is successful. And then next we can add an aggregate up here, so we can see at a campaign level how many of the campaign emails were successful. So let's drag in our aggregate component into the screen. Let's link that up to my calculator. The aggregate is very easy to configure. I simply need to select my grouping. So let's group all of this by campaign name. And then now I need to add in my aggregations. So let's count the number of campaign emails we sent across, and let's see how many of those were successful by my calculated column. So let's sum up the campaign successes. Hit OK on that. And now we can resample this. So every step of the transformation job, I can actually sample my data. So now we can see by campaign how many campaign emails we sent out and how many of those are a success. Finally, rather than putting the raw numbers in here, maybe we wish to calculate a campaign success percentage. We can do this using another calculator component. Let's have the data flow from my aggregate into that calculator. Let's add in a new calculated column. And let's define the success percentage as whether the count of the successful campaigns over the total count of campaigns multiplied by 100. When we're happy with that calculation, we can see the calculator component has turned green. So again, we can resample it. And now we can see the data from our campaign success. And we can see that campaign 3 was just about the most successful campaign. Campaign 5 was the least successful. However, they're all of a similar order of magnitude. Now, if we then want to feed this data into another tool, such as Data Studio or maybe Tableau, as Jonathan was discussing, we can write this data out to BigQuery, either using a create view component or a rewrite table. I'm going to select a rewrite table, which will create me a new table when this job runs. And in this, I simply need to give the name of the table that Matillion will create. So now here we can see that we've got the complete transformation job written. It's very easy to run this. We can simply right-click and choose to run this. Just very briefly, I will jump back into my orchestration job. And we've got the usual flow control components that you would expect to see in an orchestration job. So we can say, once both of these loads from our source systems have run successfully, wait at the AND gate, and now we can nest the transformation job in. So we can say, run our transformation job after the loads have succeeded. So here we've got the complete ELT approach in one orchestration job. And this job can then be scheduled and can be run on a regular basis, as Jonathan described he does with his customers. Okay, fantastic. So I think I will now hand back over to Christian and we will take any questions that anyone has.
Great, thank you, Laura. Just whilst we're waiting, I did have a question for you actually, Jonathan. Jonathan, you spoke a bit about time to value and how quickly you can get to market with this. I was curious, so if customer presents opportunity to you at the 7 stars, how quickly do you think you can actually turn around the infrastructure required to set that project up? Is that a quick job for you? What is your time to value like on using this stack?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, as with most things. Like I said, it's if you have the data sources in place, so if you have those connections in place and data is readily available to pull into BigQuery, then the transformation jobs themselves within Matillion can be done within a day, depending on your kind of skill level with Matillion. But like I said, myself being a new user to it, when we first signed on to Matillion, was able to kind of produce what I would consider a fairly complex transformation job within 20 hours. Now, that is getting to you that is 20 hours is a fairly long time, so that's getting to know the program as well as understanding the actual requirements for the job. I think I mentioned now we've got that down to about a few hours, 5 hours or so, for a new job that would come in. Actually, we had just one the other day for a travel client, and with the templates that we already had in place, so extracting the data from the sources, joining them with any kind of match tables and things like that you need to do. Pulling in Google Analytics data, Facebook data, and things like that. Those templates we already have in place. So the setup for those, and if the data set is kind of a one-to-one kind of switch, i.e., if you're in Facebook and you're just having to change a client ID or an advertiser ID, then it's extremely quick. To be honest, and you move on from having a template to just ironing out the smaller details. Yeah, it really depends on the scope and the requirements that you have, but so it's very intuitive, it's very quick to have something in place, I'd say. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Just in the meantime, we've had a couple of other questions come in. So does Matillion have any functionality to load data from sources you don't have a native connector for? This is a really easy one to answer, actually. Within Matillion, there is an API query component. So using this component, you can build your own profile to get into data web sources which are unique to you. And if you need help building out that API query component, we're more than happy to do that for you. Another question coming from Jovelyn. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Do you have example use cases of extracting data from Google Analytics? And absolutely we do. Are you able to speak to that quickly, Laura?
Yeah, of course. So yes, we do. So generally speaking, to pull data from Google Analytics into BigQuery, we know that Google offer the functionality to link your Google Analytics data using Google Analytics 360 and pass that across into BigQuery. However, Google Analytics does have a REST API, as does DoubleQuick, and we have built API profiles to pull data from that REST API and then use that in conjunction with, as you say, the API query component to pull data from that into BigQuery. And that's something that we're happy to share with you if you'd like, Javelin.
If I may, there's another solution there for Google Analytics, and that's using Google Sheets, which has an add-on for Google Analytics. It's super user-friendly, very, very easy. You can just build your query in Google Sheets, run the report, and you can even schedule that report in Google Sheets, which populates your Google Sheet with your Google Analytics data. You can then use Matillion's Google Drive connector to pull that Google Sheet into Matillion, I've used that a lot, and it's super good.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, John.
Yeah, hey, I like it. Is that one we've not thought of before, Laura? Patience.
It is indeed. No, it is indeed.
We've got another question here, a really good question. Is there a quick start package? Yes, there is. The thing to Google actually is Matillion Test Drive. And so if you've not quite got the firepower to go and start this infrastructure yourself, there is a self-contained 3-day test drive in which totally free, and you can spin up a copy of Matillion and Google BigQuery, and we take you through a tutorial on how the solution works. So yeah, thanks for your question. Any more questions? We'll leave the call open for another couple of minutes. Okay, I think we're about wrapping up here. So once again, thank you to all of the speakers on our panel today. John from Google, Jonathan from the 7 Stars, and for Laura Mallins from Matillion. Again, if you want to go and get started with your own project, then please reach out to us at Matillion. We're more than happy to help support that. And if you need help getting started, you can drop a note to support@matillion.com. You can reach out to us on our website, where we will actually engage with you in a one-to-one demo environment. So if you need any help at all, please let us know. And again, thank you to all of our speakers today. Have a good day. Thanks very much.